Good afternoon and welcome to the December 28, 2016 Legal and Finance meeting. And we will start with roll call and determination quorum.
Roberts. Here. Wright. Here. Lorente. Here. Modrick. Here. Scott. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And now it's time for adoption of the agenda. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, with the deletion of item number 9 that we dealt with yesterday at the special council meeting. Thank you, Pauline.
You were here, Steve. I wasn't here, sorry.
So is that all right with the motion maker?
It is.
And the seconder? So we have a motion to adopt the agenda, removing item number 9. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Now it's time for general public comment. I don't have any speaker forms in front of me, and I don't see anybody jumping up and down to speak. So I will open and close that, and we will go to consent items, items 1 through 7. Would any member of this board like to pull anything off of consent? I don't see any. So if anybody would like to make a motion.
So move.
We have a motion by Mr. Wright and a second by Mr. Lorente. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. We will go on to item number 8. This is under Mayor's items, discussion of options for parking lot located at the corner of 5th and St. Joseph Street. And Mr. Wright, you have the floor.
I make a motion this item go to council without a recommendation for discussion.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
For discussion?
Yes, I'd like discussion.
Okay, and we don't have anybody on the floor that wants to speak, so Alderwoman Modrick, I think you're first.
You can discuss the motion, that's no problem.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to make sure I know how this process is. I understand that we had opened this up now years ago with some options, and in some of the information that we did receive from the attorney's office on the 4 options that there are and how those would handle, one of them states that it could delay the length of time. But I guess my question, and maybe I'll direct this to the attorney if I can, Mr. Chair.
You may.
Thank you. And that is the city feeling like we have to be under a time limit to make something happen there, or can we actually make decisions on what we want to do with that corner and then take the time to make sure we get it right this time? I guess I don't feel like we're under pressure, but I needed to know that based on this letter.
I mean, we're not under any legal pressure. I mean, frankly, that's up to you as a council to decide is how you want to proceed. I mean, my personal opinion is do the right thing with it, even if it takes more time. However, I think everyone recognizes that the original process has been going on for something like 10 years. And so I think there is a lot of feeling in the community. They would like to see something happen there sooner than later. But that doesn't mean that I would advocate you rush a decision and just to get something done.
So now that we've learned about the RFP process on a piece of property that is city owned, is that something that can be done in the specs of that RFP? Is to once again maybe can the RFP be written so that it does have a time that shrinks up what we went through this last time, so we're not out there 10 or 12 years or 15 years?
Yes, I think you can, but again, I would advocate, I think one of the mistakes that we made that caused this to drag on as long as it did is right from the beginning, not probably getting somebody with actual experience in this to help us through the process. In talking with Sarah Hansel from Community Planning, I think there are entities out there that could help us put together an RFP that have done this before and know where the pitfalls are and things and market it to organizations and developers outside of Rapid City and outside of South Dakota that probably have a lot more experience with these type of projects. But, you know, I'll just say I was at a conference several months ago and was talking with some of the other city attorneys there about public-private partnerships in much larger communities. One of the agreements I referenced came from one of their projects. But, you know, even in that situation, the city attorney I'm thinking of was from Beaverton, Oregon. It's a suburb of Portland, headquarters of Nike. So even they had problems where they had a proposed project, and with the economy and things, it really slowed it down. So, you know, I think that's a good way to, if you're going to go down that path, to make sure it has the best chance of success possible. But again, there's no guarantees, even if you do that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Laurenti, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And I have a question for Public Works, Mr. Tech, if I may, please. Mr. Tech, I have a zoning question because, you know, I'm attracted to option number 3, of course, because I think the biggest mistake we've made has been involved in it. That's, in my opinion, that it hasn't been developed over the last 11 years because government has interjected itself a little bit too much. My question for you is about zoning. I assume that we are applying, there are zoning we have zoning for that particular lot already. Will that not control the type of development we have there without government being so involved? Or can we zone it differently? Can we add additional zoning to ensure that we get maybe the desired type of development that the city's looking for?
I believe the property is currently zoned Central Business District, which allows for many municipal uses. So to say that the current zoning controls what can go there in the future, it's pretty broad. There are a lot of options for what can be built there today. With the downtown master plan and the current proposed changes to zoning down there, I don't see it being any different. I think it'll be the same type zoning. The city, if you really want to be restrictive, could rezone the property to something else, but I would recommend against that because that really changes the way the whole downtown is looked at.
So if I'm looking at option 3 and we say we list this property, do you think the current zoning do we need to change that zoning, or would that zoning, in your opinion, if we did option 3, would that be advisable, in your opinion, based on the zoning we have on that property today?
No, I believe the current zoning is appropriate today, and I don't see any reason to change it, and I don't believe that the current zoning would prohibit things that we don't want to see downtown. So I think it's appropriate at this time, and I don't see any need to change the zoning.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate that because I've read through those options, and honestly, I believe that option 3. I mean, we're looking at property that's got a valuation of over $1 million. I believe the city needs to extract itself from the process, like we would any other property that gets developed in Rapid City. We need to make sure the zoning is right, and I believe you just heard Mr. Tech talk about that, and I believe we have the appropriate zoning there. I'm hoping that we'll have a good discussion at this next council meeting, but I'm definitely leaning towards option 3, and I believe the city needs to extract itself and let the private industry do its thing. And I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Laurenti. Mr. Wright, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. My intent of my motion was to get it to discussion on Monday night because all 10 of us need to talk about it. I think we'll have at-length discussion. But to reinstate some history, it isn't 10 years we've been dealing with this property. It's about 42. It was 1974 that property was leveled with the anticipation of building parking structures for the St. Joe side. So we have a long history and a lot to discuss. I look forward to it, and I think Monday night's the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. City Attorney was in.
I was just going to say, I know as part of the downtown plan, we had discussed working with the downtown group to maybe come up with some design standards and things for downtown buildings. That would probably influence it. I don't know if that's something you would want to wait for, but there definitely with the downtown plan was a desire to push more urban development and that type of design. Right now, I don't think any of that's in place. So, if you just listed it right now, you would really not have any restriction. Of course, again, the more restrictions you put on the property, the less marketable it'll be. But I think if it's downtown, choosing some design criteria and things for buildings and imposing that on the other downtown business owners, it's probably going to go over better. But I don't know how long that process will be to get that in place either. So just something to think about when you think about listing it.
Thank you very much. We have nobody else in the queue. So we do have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. If I can get a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.